He may not be worth the billions he once was, but Charles Bronfman is still one of Canada's wealthiest men. His family fortune was built on booze at Seagram's and then grew in real estate, chemicals, and entertainment. He's given much of his fortune away to charity. He's a huge supporter of Israel, and he even once owned Montreal's late lamented Expos baseball team. But as Lloyd Robertson discovered, in a lifetime of achievement, there is also regret.
A gala night in Toronto, a celebration of this man, Charles Bronfman. His vision to teach Canadians their history in 85 short movies, the Heritage Minutes.
I do think that these minutes will always be a part of our heritage.
From the heroism of Canadian soldiers in World War I to a defining moment in hockey.
On November 1st, 1959, Jacques Plante of the Montreal Canadiens broke with tradition.
And a Canadian who gave the world a new hero.
You never know, it might be worth something someday.
But history, 1 minute at a time, is just one of Charles Bronfman's remarkable achievements. Now, at 85, he's sharing his life story in a memoir and this exclusive interview. In order to do the book, you had to be candid. Was it difficult?
In doing the actual story of my own life, that was easy. I had no problems about it. They should know me. They should know warts and all. Who the heck am I?
His fortune from the family business, Seagram. It was best known as the biggest liquor company in the world. A Canadian sports pioneer, he brought Major League Baseball, the Expos, to Montreal and Canada. And Charles has long been one of Canada's most generous philanthropists. The fortune came out of the bottle, brands familiar to generations of Canadians. Vats of alcohol that made the Bronfmans billions of dollars.
It was more than money. Seagram defined who we were. Heck, boy, when I was 7 years old or 10 years old, as soon as I could be as high as a bar, I used to look at the back of the bar to see what brands they had.
So how big was the U.S. holding?
In terms of dollars? Oh gosh, I don't know. I really don't know. It was, and we were, by that time, the largest distiller in the world.
Seagram was built up by his father, Sam, and while the liquor business spanned the globe, home was Montreal, a Jewish family in the Tony English neighborhood of Westmount. Growing up here, the immense privilege and wealth isolated Charles from the bilingual reality of Montreal. How much did you know about Montreal and Quebec and the community growing up around you?
I didn't even know there were any French people in Montreal.
Pardon?
I did not know there were any French people in Montreal.
Really? So you were in your 20s before you knew that there was a large French component in Montreal?
Yes.
That was a long way from the family's more humble beginnings, selling booze at this hotel in Yorkton, Saskatchewan. Soon they were distilling their own. And then in the 1920s, prohibition in the United States and charges of bootlegging against his father, Sam.
And the one thing I think that was terrible for him was always the curse of being called a bootlegger. Now, you're going to ask me, was he? I don't know. I know that he shipped goods, and I know that they crossed the border, but I also know that he paid all the taxes that the Canadian government wanted.
Yes, the Canadian government ended up making a lot of money out of it.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Now, why do you think Sam Bronfman was tagged and some of the others who were also?
I don't understand it. What about the beer guys?
Well, there must be some reason. Have you speculated?
Oh, it could have been Jewish also. The Jews invading the WASP territory.
The charges for evading liquor duties didn't stick, and eventually the case was thrown out of court. But prohibition was the path to the family fortune. What was it like growing up under Sam Bronfman?
He was a very tough hombre. He was an aggressive guy. He made a fortune.
Sam ran Seagram as a family fiefdom. The patriarch had 4 children, Minda, Phyllis, Edgar, and the youngest, Charles.
I had 3 siblings who I thought were much more intelligent, much more refined. I had this terrible inferiority complex of my own doing, of my own making.
Was there enough love in the house when you were growing up?
We could see the love between Mother and Dad, which was great. I did not find Mother particularly gratuitous and loving. Dad was wonderful to me, but he wasn't around a lot because he was in the United States building the business 5 days a week. I was always scared of him. Let's not misunderstand each other, but I loved him. Well, we're going into Dad's office. Quite different now than what it was, but that was his desk. The clock over there was outside, and that is him right over there.
Did he have a fast temper? Quick temper?
Did he ever? But you know what? He'd call people terrible, terrible names, and then later on he'd apologize. But his temper was legendary.
By the 1950s, 1 of every 3 distilled drinks sold in North America was poured from a Seagram bottle, and Charles took his place in the family business. Just 28 years old, he was named president of Seagram Canada. But the big job went to his older brother Edgar, put in charge of the U.S. operation in 1957, and in 1971, he became chairman. It would eventually have dire consequences for Seagram.
I don't like to say this, but Edgar, when he was young, was a bully. So he used to beat me up. But if I'm going to keep beaten up, I'm going to take care of the one who beats me up. So I would make things even worse than they were, complain to my father, and my father would take care of my brother.
Were you content to allow Edgar to become the head of Seagram?
Yes, no question. I was fine running our company in Canada. And so when Edgar and I sat down on the back steps of the house one day, and he was saying that, no matter what we do, it'll be in Dad's image, because if we fail, we're stupid, and if we succeed, it was because Dad built the business.
In the late 60s, Charles was looking for a bigger challenge.
How could I screw up the Canadian Seagram business? It would take a real genius to do that, and I wasn't a genius. But to pioneer and to be out from under, as it were, and to get something done.
Something of your own.
Something of your own, yes.
Your own money.
Yeah.
Charles took his money and staked his place in Canadian sports history, backing the Montreal Expos and bringing Major League Baseball to Canada. When you went to your father...
Yeah. He wanted to only know one thing. Did his kid have the guts to do something like this? Once he found out, yes, he became the #1 Expos fan in the world. The entrance fee was $10 million. 10 investors at $1 million each.
Some of those investors got cold feet, but not Charles.
And I finally said, fellas, why are we fighting? God bless you, come to all the games, I'll buy you out. Eventually I wound up owning, I think, 75%.
But this was something of yours. You were in charge. How did that finally feel to you?
It was great. And the interesting thing to me was that I sort of came out of the back room and onto the front pages.
With the cash in the league's hands, the team expanded Jerry Park for big league ball. Today, this painting of Expo fans hangs in Charles's office in New York.
As you can see, everybody seems to be pretty happy. We must have been winning the game.
And the boy with the Expo cap, the famous Expo cap.
Which is still being sold. And it's sort of a memorabilia piece. I see more darn people walking with Expos hats, and not only in Montreal, I see them here in New York.
And at the beginning, that cap was controversial, wasn't it?
It certainly was. Gene Mock, our first manager, thought that it was a beanie. And when I told him we'd sell 1 million hats that summer, he suddenly liked it.
His 2 children, Stephen and Ellen, grew up wearing those Expo hats.
It was really fun. It was a wonderful life growing up with baseball as not only a passion, but as somewhat of a family business.
I grew up with it from the minute I was around. It was just part of our family. You know, we'd go to spring training every year. We loved it.
My dad talks a lot about it, how doing the Expos deal brought him out of his shell and really made him his own person.
Eventually, for Charles, the Expos became just another big business. In 1991, he sold the team he'd owned for 22 years.
Well hit to left, way back.
But baseball in Canada honored Charles when the Toronto Blue Jays made it to the World Series in 1992. And Charles was asked to throw out the first pitch.
I said, Steve, bring down my mitt. Bring down your own mitt. We got to practice. Next day we went to Toronto. I had 3 stiff glasses of wine, went out, and the ball just managed to make it over the plate. I'll never, ever forget when I threw the first pitch at that World Series game, first World Series game ever to be played outside the United States.
Ready to throw the first World Series pitch ever outside the United States.
The thrill of that pitch would soon be brought low.
A decision to sell a legacy
I didn't understand why my uncle would do that.
splits a family apart.
No goddamn way.
When W5 continues.
One of Canada's richest men, 85-year-old Charles Bronfman, books a private plane the way most of us hail a cab. Bronfman's fortune made in the family liquor business, billions of dollars. This day, he's flying from New York to his hometown of Montreal. Charles is still going strong. So here you are, flying off to another event, 85 years old.
Oh, come on, you're 82 years old.
Well,
we're partners in all this.
Okay, but what keeps you going?
What keeps me going, same thing keeps you going. We got to keep our minds active, we got to keep our bodies active, and we have to give a damn. We have to really care.
And what he really cares about these days is philanthropy. His pledge is to give away 1/2 of his wealth, more than $1 billion.
I finally found my métier. But when I got into philanthropy, it was really me calling the shots. It wasn't anybody else. There was no commissioner of baseball. There was no Sam Bronfman. There was no Edgar Bronfman. It was me.
How do you rate your interests, your charitable interests?
You can't change and save the entire world. You can change and save a bit of the world. And everybody has got to learn that truth.
Another truth Charles lives with is the fate of Seagram, once one of Canada's wealthiest companies. He stood by as older brother Edgar changed direction and launched the company. Edgar's first step? Naming his son, Edgar Jr., to succeed him.
And I didn't realize that when Junior came into the business that he was being trained to take over from his father.
And you read about that in Fortune magazine.
Reading about the fact that he had chosen his son to succeed him in Fortune magazine came as a total shock to me.
Charles' daughter Ellen was a teenager at the time.
I can remember standing in my room and seeing the magazine and thinking, who does this? What is this? And I found the whole thing very upsetting, and I didn't understand why my uncle would do that.
You know, Edgar was interesting and very opinionated as well, and did some controversial things in his years, especially naming his second son as CEO over his eldest son. And Edgar was an opinionated fellow.
In 1995, Edgar and Edgar Jr. sold Seagram's huge stake in DuPont Chemicals to buy a media giant, MCA Universal, and in 2000 merged with the giant French company Vivendi. A deal Charles says the family patriarch Sam would have vetoed.
He was the boss. He built the business. He would not have seen this happen.
He would have said, don't go into movies, don't go into entertainment. He would never have...
He would have not said it that way.
How would he have said it?
No goddamn way.
It was the beginning of the end, and Charles has a lot of regret.
When I heard rumors that my brother and my nephew wanted to sell the DuPont holding to go into the movie business, I was totally shaken. and tried very hard with them to get them to change their minds.
You loved DuPont. You wanted to stick with it.
Yes, I suffered like hell. What about this great company that Dad had built? What's going to happen to it? What is happening to it?
Charles suffered while watching the value of his Seagram shares sink from a high of $115 Canadian to an historic low. What was the lowest point for you in all that?
Oh my gosh, I'll tell you exactly when the lowest point was. The Vivendi stock had gone to $9 a share. And I said, oh my God, we're going to go bankrupt. That was the lowest. And yet I made the decision, in effect, not to fight. Now, I know that most of our audience is not going to feel very sorry for me.
You're carrying this huge, shall we say, guilt with you. Is it ever going to lift from your shoulders?
No, it won't. Why didn't I have the guts to go to the board? Because again, it was the family feud thing, and also I guess it was the pecking order with Edgar and me.
How many times do you run this over in your mind?
Oh, not more than a few thousand.
Charles' son, Stephen, watched his father ride the emotional wave.
It was really difficult to watch the pressures on my dad, what that was doing to him, and he always talks about how he could have stopped this deal from happening, but he felt that by doing that would really cause a major war, a major rift with his brother.
To be honest, it was awful. For me, I felt like I was just watching my father getting bullied into a situation that he didn't need to be, and I sort of took matters into my own hands and made that clear to my uncle and my cousin that I wasn't happy with that. But, you know, my father, his intentions were so pure. He didn't want to create a family rivalry, or he didn't want to break up the family for this.
Charles's personal wealth had taken a shellacking. One estimate put his losses at about $2 billion. But he is still a very wealthy man and has turned his attention to his enduring passion, his philanthropy.
Hi, Charles Bronfman. Hi, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
One major cause he supports is Birthright Israel. He chairs the planning committee. The goal, to send Jewish youth to Israel on a free 10-day trip, an opportunity to explore their Jewish identity and homeland. So far, Charles' initiative has allowed 500,000 young people to make this trip.
Starting Birthright Israel, I'm so proud of that. It's an amazing program. All the things he's done in the Jewish world is fantastic.
Charles is blunt about the effort that goes into his philanthropy.
Every philanthropic endeavor I ever did, I had to fight. Things don't drop in your lap. You know, you have to go out there and win them.
Another program, another meeting, this time at New York's Mount Sinai Hospital, supporting genetic research that may lead to improved individualized treatment for all.
Who composes the executive committee? Is that internal and doctors?
And it's not just Charles. His philanthropy has extended to his children.
Dad was great to include my sister and myself on his board when he started his foundation. And so it's a really important value that the family has, our family, Dad's family, grandfather's family. It's something that's a part of who we are.
It's grounded in the old Hebrew ethic and the Israelites. The Jewish religion is one of the few that exists that says making money is good. And you should make money, you should have lots of children, you should be able to feed them. And there is a tithe. 10% of your earnings should go to those less fortunate than yourself.
After the bitter family fight, there is no sign of letting up. Today, in his New York office, on the phone for yet another good work.
I have just become the chairman of a new advisory council for the Israel Policy Forum.
Seagram may be history, and Charles has come to grips with its loss. You've lived with this for a long time, and looking back now from this perspective, is this something you'll ever be able to put behind you?
No. No, it's something I'll live with, but, you know, I'm very, very fortunate. I'm in very good financial shape. I have 2 wonderful kids. I have grandchildren. I live a very good life. I am a contented man.
One day, the story of the Bronfman dynasty may be worthy of a Heritage Minute.
Eulogies are supposed to be said after you're dead. I am alive, yes.